right. My pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Denise Young has been the executive director of the Bell Museum, Minnesota's State Museum of Natural History, and a unit of the University of Minnesota since 2016. She began her career in science education as a classroom teacher, and she moved to museum education and leadership upon reflecting on how important museums were to her students, colleagues, and community. Before coming to Minnesota to lead the Bell, Denise served as the Director of Education and Planning at Morehead Planetarium and Science Center at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where she led planetarium production, exhibit and program development, community outreach, and long-range institutional planning. The Bell Museum's $79 million award-winning new facility opened under her watch in 2018, and she proudly leads a talented team of scientists, educators, and designers committed to inspiring awe, curiosity, and understanding of the natural world. I am so excited to hear what you have to say today, Denise. Welcome, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you for Michelle for the opportunity to be here. And also I should thank Peggy Lepick, who is a good friend to all of us. And certainly she's been a great friend to the Bell Museum for, I think she initially connected me in the Bell Museum to the Golden Valley Rotary. And also thank you for all you do for our community. Have come to appreciate the value of Rotary clubs in the Twin Cities community. I moved here about 5 years ago, and so thank you for all that you do. I am going to pop some slides up today. And while I do that, I just want to share that I am working from my home, not the museum, and I have a trusty sidekick who barks a lot. So I will apologize in advance, and she knows she'll get lots of treats during anytime I'm giving a presentation like this. So if you see me kind of leaning over, that's what's going on. So raise your hand if you have, if you know anything about the Bell Museum or have been to the Bell Museum, either the former location or our new location. Great. Well, seems like some of you know at least some things about the Bell Museum, and I will just invite you as we go along to chime in with your experiences or thoughts or ideas, and anyone feel free to chime in with questions. This is a small group, informal group, and we can certainly ask questions at the end, but don't hesitate to just chime in at any time, and I'll do my very best. And what I just wanted to share with you today is a little bit about your State Natural History Museum, the Bell Museum. And as I do that, I wanted to I always like to know a little bit about who's speaking to me. So I'm just going to share a little bit about my own background and how I ended up here at the University of Minnesota and at the Bell Museum. So Michelle kindly mentioned that I was a classroom teacher early in my career, and I consider myself a lifelong educator. What you don't know until right now is that I started my career teaching in kindergarten. So this is my very first kindergarten class, and it was in this context of teaching kindergarten that I made a really exciting finding, probably one of the most important ones in my professional life, and one that has shaped every facet of my career. And in kindergarten, we did this thing called Student of the Week, where if you were the student of the week, you got to make pick all the stories we read in class, be the line leader. And in my classroom, you also got to make a wish that I would try to make come true. And early in my first year as a teacher, it was Devontae's turn to be teacher of the week. And Devontae is the little guy sitting on the front row, far right. And he stated his wish. It was to meet a snake. And that is not at all what I would have picked, but I made the arrangements all the same. And on what I now call Snake Day, the man that I had contacted arrived to my classroom, only he wasn't alone. He had brought some of his colleagues from the Duke University Biology Department with him. And as they entered the classroom, they immediately began handing each child in my class, my teaching assistant, Ms. Parker, and myself, a rather heavy and wiggling pillowcase, because They had not brought just one snake for us to meet. They had brought 22, and one for each of us. And Miss Parker and I, the adults in the classroom, were totally freaked out about this experience. My kindergartners, these 5-year-olds, were mesmerized. They were intent and focused in a way I had not seen since our school year had started. They were making excellent observations about the snakes, asking really insightful questions. And as soon as we were certain that all of the snakes were out the door at the end of the visit, all 22 accounted for, my students got really busy writing stories about snakes, checking books about snakes out of the library, looking for snakes on the school grounds in their homes, and many other snake-related activities. And everyone in the class joined in, and with every new student of the week wish, the natural world opened up to us in beautiful and fascinating and unexpected ways. And so what I learned in kindergarten that year was that science and nature were the most powerful hooks for engaging young people, for tapping their curiosities, for creating engaged, excited, and self-motivated learners. And if you're a teacher, that's really what it's all about, is creating self-motivated, curious learners. And so to this day, the realization about the power of science and nature and education to empower people and to change their lives, it remains the most important finding of my professional life. And it is something I've become really passionate about. And it is what led me to career in, switch course to museums, and ultimately to come to Minnesota to lead the state's Natural History Museum. And so just to share a little bit of background about the Bell Museum, in 1872, the legislature of Minnesota called for a state museum of natural history to collect, preserve, interpret, and tell the story of Minnesota's biodiversity. And they said that the museum ought to be held at the University of Minnesota. And we're proud to be a unit of the University of Minnesota and have been since our founding in 1872. And the museum has been active for this whole time. Next year, we'll celebrate our 150th anniversary as the state's Natural History Museum. Now, we hold about 1.2 million biological specimens that depict the plant and animal life of Minnesota and beyond. We have multiple curators at the museum. They're research scientists, and they're all tenured or tenure-track faculty members. So they have a joint appointment with their home department and the Bell Museum. They are responsible for caring for, adding to, and curating our scientific collections. We also have a full accompaniment of graduate students, undergraduate students who are involved in research at the museum. The curators, in addition to caring for the collection, conduct research about our collections. And some of the topical areas in which their research sits is understanding species biodiversity, plant, animal, environment interactions over time, climate change and climate change impacts, invasive species. And they also consult on land use and other municipal and state policy decisions. The collections are used by researchers broadly at the University of Minnesota, well beyond our curators, with researchers at other universities around the globe, at other museums globally, as well as state and federal agencies, and our natural resource professionals across Minnesota access our collections as well. Our collections are sort of like an archive or a library of reference materials that represent change over time. They're incredibly important. And then, of course, our collections are used by students in their coursework. We have we continue to, but we've made a huge amount of progress in the last several years of digitizing all of our collections, so they are available and even more accessible than ever. And so we are now finding that school teachers and school children and the general public are also using our collections. So as we get started today, I just wanted to share that science is a huge part of what happens at the Bell Museum, in addition to the public activities of the museum. The science is something that's a little bit harder to see, but it forms the basis and is a critical component of the State Natural History Museum. Now, of course, we have made substantial strides in the last 3 to 4 years to focus and retool what we can deliver to the public. We opened a new facility on the St. Paul campus of the University of Minnesota back in July of 2018. And we have been leveraging the investment of this phenomenal new facility to really educate, inspire, spark awe and wonder in people from across Minnesota and well beyond. We went from serving in our previous location, which was on the Minneapolis campus of the university, where we served about 38,000 people a year, to now serving about 230,000 people a year. So we really have grown our ability to engage with the public, with school children. And one example of that is that we hold the state's public planetarium, which includes the latest technology and the only seamless planetarium dome in existence. Which is really important for creating an immersive experience, for feeling like you're traveling through space. Because this is a digital state-of-the-art planetarium system, we can also travel anywhere where we can visualize data. So we not only go to outer space, we can go to inner space. We can take you inside the cells of the body. Right now we've got a show about the human brain. And we said we can take you and fly you through the human brain as well. So as the stars and the solar system and universe. So, with the addition of the planetarium, this opened up opportunities to discuss Minnesota from the origins of the universe, from the Big Bang to the modern day. We also have a new gallery in our museum called Life in the Universe, which explores the really big questions about how Earth came to be and when, why Earth is just the right place to support life, and are there other planets with life out elsewhere in the universe. So really exciting addition to the new museum. It is not lost on us when people are visiting the State's Natural History Museum, especially thinking about those K-12 school children, that it is perhaps a visitor's first time visiting the University of Minnesota, or any university for that matter. And we know, our staff knows, that this doubles our opportunity. We think about everyone who walks through the doors as, particularly youth, are they the next Golden Gophers at the University of Minnesota? Certainly we know that they are our current and next generation workforce, that they are residents of our state who can understand the value of a major research university, of the value of research to positively affect our lives. And we work really closely with schools and school teachers and school districts to provide opportunities to support and extend what happens in K-12 classrooms in a way that they could never experience at school. So, an example of that is that we're able to connect K-12 students and teachers to the diversity of researchers who work at the university. And one way we can think about diversity is just how the ethnic or racial diversity of people, and for students to see people who look like them representing science, or women scientists. In addition, representation is incredibly important, and we have a wealth of researchers at the university that we can draw from to engage with students across the state as we are engaging them at the museum and through our programs. The children who visit the museum see what the front lines of discovery and innovation are all about. and then they take that back to their schools, to their homes, and to their communities with them, and it gets them very excited about learning. And as a former classroom teacher, I understand the value of these kinds of experience on the trajectories and life experiences of children. We currently, in terms of school children, serve about 35 to 40,000 school children at the museum and through our virtual program. So we are very serious. We're committed to science education, work closely with the Minnesota Department of Education to spur learning in science and the STEM fields. Beyond that, we are about lifelong learning, and we talk about it as lifelong, life-wide, and life deep. And for us, that just means that there are different purposes for learning at different phases and stages of our lives. Sometimes it's learning is, to prepare for a career. Other times it's for pure interest and passion. Sometimes it's to solve problems or to participate in our democracy. We have many multi-generational families visiting the museum, and it is fascinating to kind of listen in on those conversations that we see families having where they are passing on, the adults are passing on the values and principles that we all hold dear as Minnesotans to their children or grandchildren, caring for the environment, respect for nature, enjoyment of the out of doors and for learning. And the Bell provides a forum for families to share those values and traditions with one another. So, fostering a love for learning is an important part of a visit to the museum with your family. And we see thousands of multi-generational families visiting the museum each year. University students are a critical component to the museum's work. We employ over 100 university students annually. They come from across Minnesota and beyond. That's one of the benefits of being at a university is that we can engage with the students at the university, and the students comprise our frontline staff, guest relations and ticketing staff. They teach, they're tour guides. They also do a lot of work behind the scenes. So they might work with our fundraising staff to support them, retail merchandising, exhibit development, community engagement, marketing. They have a chance through the Bell Museum to put their theoretical learning from the classroom into practice in really practical ways. And in addition to the students, we partner with faculty across the university, whether that is in the sciences or immersive technology, museum studies, humanities. We are engaging across the university and bringing those resources and that brain power from the university into the museum to share with the public. We also collaborate closely with community-based organizations. Over the last year, we've worked with over 130 community-based organizations that may be a school district, a public library, social service organization, or an after-school program. We are doing our best to fill unmet needs in our community through talking with, we're constantly out in the community trying to learn and discuss what are those shared commitments that we have, what are those needs that we see, what are those opportunities that we want to address, and then again leveraging the resources of the museum to the best of our ability to help address those needs and interests. One example is that during the pandemic, which is ongoing, and we'll be doing this again this summer, but last summer we spoke with our community partners during that sort of chaotic mid-March through May time period where families were having to take on a primary role as an educator of their children and Virtual learning was confusing and for everyone. And we were also worried about access to science learning, learning at all, due to technology access issues. And so we got together with some community partners and said, how can we get involved? What do you need? And by and large, we were told that hands-on learning that could be low tech was a need. And so we worked with community partners. We had 16 community partners across the Twin Cities. And the staff of the museum built these kits that included all the materials needed to do 7 to 10 science and nature activities. We packaged those up. We worked with our community partners on distribution. Usually that was a distribution that was taking place in conjunction with meal distribution. So, so we worked with families who had need to get these kits and materials into their hands. Again, these don't require any technology, so that barrier to, we tried to eliminate the barriers there. We also then, over the summer, started talking again with school districts and saying, what do you need as we enter into this unknown territory of a full school year, or at that time we thought perhaps a full school year, of virtual learning, and from those conversations created live interactive programs on natural history and astronomy that teachers can access. They just call and make a reservation as they would have with a field trip, which of course those are not happening right now. But created programs that teachers could on demand request one of our educators to join their students online and create that interactive, highly engaging programming. So, so we are doing our best to address needs as we see them and understand them. Finally, as a unit of the university, which is statewide in mission and presence, as well as being the state's Natural History Museum, we are setting our sights on doing more outside the Twin Cities. It's something that we feel deeply about. You know, as the state's Natural History Museum, we should be serving all 87 counties and people in communities across Minnesota. And this is something now that the museum is open and reopened, and things are going well, that we can really set our sights on greater Minnesota. We've had to accelerate some of that through like virtual school programs because of the pandemic, but we are really now thinking about other ways we can bring the natural history, astronomy, science, and nature experiences of the Bell Museum to communities across the state. One example is a portable planetarium that fits in a suitcase that we can put in a minivan and travel around the state, bringing a planetarium experience to a tribal school, a community center, anywhere in the state. And then we will also be developing different means for engaging the public in nature-based learning and natural history and astronomy experiences over time. So after a challenging year, we have safely reopened the museum. We actually opened for a few months last summer and then had to close again in November, but we are open now. We are, and you see some masks, we're adhering to all the safety guidelines. Museums have over the last year been seen and tested as one of the safest places that you can go in a community, in addition to one of the most trusted. I invite you to come to the museum. We've got a lot happening at the museum right now. You can certainly catch that planetarium show that is called Mysteries of Your Brain, or an outer space show if you prefer. You can catch this new exhibit. It is about environmental equity and justice. And of course, you can enjoy the treasured nature dioramas that the Bell Museum is so known for. The diorama hall, if you haven't been to the new building, is completely redesigned. It's organized by Biome of Minnesota, so it's pretty easy to take a whole walk across the state in our diorama hall in just an afternoon. So with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about the museum. I hope you've learned a little something new about your State Natural History Museum, and hope I've inspired you to come visit us and perhaps get involved in other ways. So at this time, happy to answer any questions you have.
I have, oh, Betsy, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jillian.
Well, I have two things that are more comments than questions. One of them is, what a gorgeous slide set. It's really beautiful.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I get chills every time I see some of these pictures.
And just a comment, I took my grandson, who at the time was 5, in the summer of 2019, and he is obsessed with space. He still is. And after seeing the show at the Planetarium, he rushed up to a staff member afterwards to tell them everything he knew about all the planets and all the moons of Jupiter. And they just were so enthusiastic and impressed with, I mean, whether they were or not, they behaved that way. Yeah. So I appreciate that. And we asked him, do you want to be an astronaut? We still ask him, do you want to be an astronaut? He says, no, I'm going to be the guy on the ground. I'm going to be an astrophysicist. So
nice. Okay, good.
Thank you for your contribution to that.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. And I mean, we welcome everyone to come to a planetarium show and have that experience. We take very seriously our mission to ignite curiosity and wonder. And so it's great to hear that feedback that happened in the case of your family. While we are still in this pandemic moment, we do have monthly star parties. We've moved them to a virtual format. We actually have one this Friday evening. So if you would like to go on our website, which is bellmuseum.umn.edu, I'll try to put that in a chat in a minute. You can register and enjoy an interactive star party experience wearing your pajamas in your own home. We bought some attachments to put on our telescopes, so you can actually, through the world of Zoom, look through a telescope. And we've had thousands of people joining our star parties. We used to have maybe a couple hundred, 300 come on the Friday evenings. We offered the programs, but here we have thousands now. Virtually, we have thousands of people coming to our star parties. You can drop questions in the chat and they'll try to answer them for you. So I would encourage all of you to join us for, if not the star party this Friday evening coming up, one of them in the near future.
Denise, can we talk practical logistics about how do we actually come to the museum? Do we need to make a reservation ahead of time? Can you walk us through that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yes, so because of COVID and restrictions on the number of people that can be in the building at one time for safety, public health and safety reasons, you do need to register in advance. And again, if you go to our website, there's a link to how to get tickets, and you just decide if you're coming to the general museum or if you want to add on a planetarium show. Our planetarium, I will tell you, has been selling out very quickly, and that is largely due to the reduced number seating capacity that we can have in the planetarium at every one time. The great news about the Bell Museum from a safety perspective is it's a new facility. And so our air handlers, our air circulation is current. And we've actually even increased the airflow from the high levels that it already was. And you just make a reservation online. General admission for adults is $12. And then there's an additional fee for planetarium shows. For children, it's $9. Membership is also available, and there are a variety of membership packages all available online. And if you purchase a membership, it pays for itself after 2 visits. So a lot of people will come to the museum and then we have found that the museum is one of those places that they want to bring their out-of-town guests when they come into town, because it's a great way to share the whole state with someone, you know, with an aunt or an uncle or parent or grandparent, and in an afternoon. And as we do get back to traveling again, we think that will continue to be the case, that the Bell Museum is a great place to share with out-of-town guests. So we see many people purchasing memberships because they know that they'll be coming multiple times. Or we change our planetarium content out quarterly as well, so people will come back for they want to see everything that is available in the planetarium. But online advanced registration and ticketing is the name of the game for the Bell Museum, and I think every other museum in the Twin Cities right now. Yeah. Thanks for that question. It's a quiet group.
Allow the space for questions
Yeah.
to percolate. There we go, Brian.
Yeah, well, I'm dying to see the new place. It's I had the privilege of knowing Walter Breckenridge, who was
Nice.
passed quite some number of years ago now, but he was a fascinating person, and he could certainly instill the spirit and awe and wonder of nature. His home was on the Mississippi River, not far off of Lindale, by the Isaac Walton League there, and so. I think it'll be neat to be visiting the new space and be able to get a new inspiration, because the new spot looks dynamite.
Yeah, Walter Breckenridge really revolutionized the museum in many ways over his tenure. He started as a naturalist at the museum, but had over his tenure as director, had his fingers in arts and nature, in the dioramas, in public education, in conservation of species across the state. So he's a giant figure in the Bell Museum, and we're fortunate that his family, his children, continue to be actively engaged in the museum. They live in the area, and we're grateful to have their continued involvement at the museum. I have certainly been inspired by Mr. Breckenridge's investments and contributions to the state of Minnesota through his work at the Bell Museum and beyond. He was under his tenure that all of the interpretive programming at state parks across the state came to be. So the Bell Museum was really active in creating, you know, whether it's interpretive signage or interpretive centers. Those did not exist at state parks until Mr. Breckenridge helped to facilitate those sorts of things. So, you know, his fingerprints are all over natural history in Minnesota. And again, it's a great honor to follow in his footsteps. And that reminds me that with the 150th anniversary next year, we'll be releasing a book about the history of the museum, and there are many chapters devoted to Walter Breckenridge. So I hope you will take a look at that. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Denise. I don't know
Thank
about you
you.
guys, but especially with the pan, I'm really eager to get out and see and do things and to continue to learn. Yeah,
on
wonderful
over.
to know that it is still accessible. We can go ahead. We can make a registration.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you anytime that feels right for you.
So Denise,
Is
did
there-
you introduce a bag of snakes to the Bell Museum?
We have in the Touch and See Lab, which is another Walter Breckenridge era educational space. We do have a live animal collection to inspire people of all ages. I'll say children of all ages to get excited about the natural world. And we do have some snakes in there, but we do not have 22 of them. I've made sure of that. So yeah, there are not 22.
A bag of snakes. I think that's a
And we don't, when we don't hand
visual for all of
we don't hand them to you in a pillowcase. So it's a facilitated experience, which is great for all of us and the snake.
Children are wonderful. I'd like to meet a snake. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like good that he said that. Maybe want something else.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Denise. We really do appreciate it.
Thank
So
you.
we are recording this. Betsy sends it out afterwards. So for folks like Thomas who weren't able to be here for the whole thing, or if you want to rewatch it, that will be made available. And you are welcome, Denise, to come and join our Rotary Club for a visit anytime you want. We meet every
Well,
Tuesday at this time.
thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation to be here today.
Absolutely. So we're going to close today by reciting the 4-way test of the things that we think, say, and do. And I will pull it up on my screen momentarily. Here we go. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, everybody, for your time today. Stay warm, stay safe. Look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thank you.